Let's focus on staying informed right now, ladies and gentlemen, as we do have an interview coming up in a matter of seconds. And it's a big day in the United States of America. Americans, in fact, are heading to the polls to vote for the next president. As you know, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump each need at least 270 electoral votes to win. The battleground states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are expected to be pivotal to the path to victory. The candidates have held their final campaign events in battleground states last night. Harris ended her 107-day campaign in Pennsylvania, while Trump spoke in Michigan, where he has ended 3 of his presidential campaigns so far. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we have a very special guest. In a short conversation with him earlier, he said, tell the listeners to listen with a calculator and pen and paper, because he's going to present some scientific evidence to support his argument as to who he believes will emerge as president, the next president of the United States of America. This brother is a Jamaican who has spent quite a bit of time studying the American voting system. And this morning, he says, I have nothing to lose. I'm going to lay it bare and allow the listeners to see what I have to share. Good morning, Mr. Barrington Green. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Richard Burgess. How are you, sir?
I'm not too bad at all. All is well?
All is very well, sir. I know the entire world is waiting on this election, and I think, I've never seen an election like this, Richard, where so many people seem to be invested. Whether you're American or you're from some other country, everyone seems to be paying attention.
Absolutely. It is definitely one of the elections that's highly watched worldwide. Now, you have been studying the American voting system, and even now, there are many people who don't quite understand this system. When they hear about the Electoral College votes, they don't quite understand. In a nutshell, explain the system for me, Barrington, if you will.
All right, quickly, Richard, before I get started, I just want to give you my credentials. I studied political science in school in New York City, and in 1984, I volunteered with the Reagan-Bush campaign, so I had a bird's-eye view of what went on behind the scenes. Yes. I was at campaign headquarters in Madison Avenue. Back then, I met Roger Stone, who a lot of people would have heard about Roger Stone being arrested.
Yes.
And I'm not just doing this as on a lark. It's something that I followed for years.
Okay, got you. Thanks for that.
The Electoral College has, when it was initially thought of by the founding fathers, they did not want general populace to vote. They thought that it would be better if we had a system whereby you vote for an elector, and these would be wise men, so to speak, and the wise men in their wisdom would pick somebody who they thought would best lead America. They were very distrustful of a demagogue, which is kind of ironic, coming up and leading the people astray. So initially, when it was thought of, black people weren't able to vote, women weren't able to vote, and it was just a privileged white men. And even then, I remember reading where Alexander Hamilton, who was very distrustful of the common man, said to Thomas Jefferson, "Your people, my dear sir, are a great beast." So that's the background. Over the years, it evolved into a situation whereby the electorate, the franchise was given to more and more people. More men were given the franchise, later on women, and then, in the 60s now, black people were given the vote. And how it evolved now, America kept the Electoral College system, but no, those electors had to pledge. It was now law. So if an elector from a state was elected and the voters voted for Trump, they must follow through and vote for Trump.
So generally, is it a case where larger states have more electoral votes and smaller states fewer? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it goes by population.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much there are 538 electors, right? And how it works is there are 435 members of congressmen. So you add that 435 to 100 senators, giving you 535, and then 3 electors from the District of Columbia, bringing you to 538. So DC is not a state, but they have electors.
And to win, the president must have is at least 270 of those votes, eh?
Correct. Even though technically, theoretically, each person could get 269 votes apiece, in which case the House of Representatives would decide to win. And that has happened before.
All right, you laid out your credentials, and by now you have convinced all of us that you definitely know what you're talking about. Let's look historically, Barrington, if you will, at some voting trends that you might have noticed or patterns that you have observed in recent elections that you think could become relevant in the 2024 race.
Well, I tell you, I'm not so much a believer in looking at the past, and I'll tell you why. Each election cycle brings a unique set of concerns from the voters. So for this election, what the concerns are might have differed than 4 years ago or 8 years ago. So here's what I want to go through and tell you. This election, I'll tell you, I heard you mentioning the battleground states, and you're correct. Arizona, just some factoids. Arizona has a population of 7.5 million people. 4.3 million of them are voters, registered voters. Right now, Trump has the lead in Arizona. So I think from the polling that I've looked at, his people have come out early, and it looks like he's going to get Arizona's 11 votes. What's interesting, Richie, is what's happening down south. Georgia and North Carolina, they both have 16 electoral votes apiece. And if you, last night I was up until about 1:30 in the morning, looking at the very, very latest early voting numbers.
Yes.
And I'm looking at my paperwork here. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you what is happening in Georgia.
All right.
The early voting in Georgia, up to yesterday, 4 million people have voted out of a voting population of 7 million. So that's 57%, Richie. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes.
So 50% of ballots have been cast. No, they have not started counting, but what the Georgia Secretary of State's website has released is how many women and how many men so far have voted. And I want to tell you this. Women are outvoting men in Georgia to the tune of 56% of the women who have voted so far are women, 44% men. Now, in every poll up to this point, there was a gender gap of about 15 to 18 points. And it holds true for men too. So men are favoring Trump by about 18 points. Mm-hmm. Women are favoring Harris by about 15. But because their numbers are so huge, so I did some calculation last night. I'm somebody who I love statistics. Mm-hmm. So here are some quick numbers on what's happening in Georgia.
Let's hear them.
If you look at the people who have voted so far, roughly 56% officially reported by the Georgia Secretary of State's website. So that would make 2.2 million women have voted. You with me?
Yes.
44% of that 4 million comes out to 1.7 million men. So that's the breakdown. Mm-hmm. Now, if what I did was I narrowed the gap. Every single poll says there's about a 15% gap, women favoring Harris. I narrowed it down to 10%.
Okay.
So if you just do some mathematics, 55% of 2.2 million gives you 1.2 million. That's 1.2 million, and I estimate to vote for Harris. 45% of that would vote for Trump. That's roughly a million. So right away, she has a 200,000 lead among women. You take now the males who have voted for Trump. I've given him a 12-point gap. So I've given him a 2-point advantage and narrowed it for the females. So 56% of 1.7 million is 986,000 for Trump.
Yes.
That leaves 774 for Harris. You tabulate both figures, and right now, Harris has roughly, going from the official numbers, by my calculation, about 2,006,000 people who have voted for her already.
Mm-hmm.
Trump has 1.9 million. Check this out, Richie.
Yeah.
That's a difference of 12,000 votes. 12,000, only 12,000. Do you know in 2020 what the difference was?
What?
Donald Trump made a famous phone call to Brad Axenberg, and he said, Brad, I just need to find 11,780 votes.
That's a very similar figure.
So we are coming down to almost a similar figure in Georgia.
Yes.
Now, what's good is there's 43% of people left to vote, and if the women continue that trend, Harris wins Georgia.
That would be a big win.
That will be a big win because Trump cannot afford to lose Georgia now. So I by my calculation, she's going in right now with about a 12,000 vote lead, and with the other 43% coming in, and we're hearing very, very good numbers. So depending on how the Atlanta area, Fulton County and some of the other counties, how much of them have voted, I really do think Georgia belongs to Harris. Now let's take a look at what's going on. I know you don't want to spend a lot of time on this, so let me hurry up. In North Carolina, Richie, a similar thing is happening. Women are outvoting men 56 to 44%. And I will just summarize it. By my calculation, Harris is behind Trump by about 24,000 in North Carolina. Even though I've given him a huge advantage. Now, check this out, Richie. One thing. In North Carolina, when they return their ballots, there is either believe it or not, there's a category for female, male, and other.
Okay.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Yeah, man.
So that state allows for people who don't want to classify themselves as men or women to use an undesignated designation.
Okay.
And there are 308,000 of them who have voted. I did not include that number in my calculation. I left it out completely. Who do you think they're going to vote for?
Well, I don't know. Could be.
In other words, people who don't identify. Remember, there's a whole gender war going on in America where people who don't want to identify as men or women. They're heavily Democratic.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're voting for Kamala.
Exactly. No, I did not include that number in my calculation where I said Trump is ahead by 24,000 right now in North Carolina. If you include that 300,000, Trump is dead.
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina.
Yes.
No, roughly 57% have voted, similar to Georgia, so even about 43% left to vote. And again, what people need to look at is the turnout among women. And if the trend continues, Harris wins North Carolina as well.
These are very, very interesting facts. What else you want to share with us, Barrington?
All right. So
before you get to the point where you tell us who you believe is going to be the overall winner, what else you want to share with us? This is interesting.
Let me go through the numbers. Right now, similar situation is happening up in Wisconsin and in Michigan. So some numbers quickly, Richie. The election starts out with Trump having roughly, if Iowa doesn't go a different way, Trump will have about going into the election with 218 electoral votes. Harris will have 227, and the battleground states will contribute 93. So that tallies up to 238. Now check this out. Harris starts out with 227. If she gets Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina, she does not need Pennsylvania. She's already at 284. Bear in mind, again, if she gets Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina, even without Pennsylvania, she's at 284. She's declared a winner, and we will know tonight because Georgia closes at 7 p.m. tonight. And Ratzenberger has said his numbers will start coming in within an hour. North Carolina closes at 7:30. And Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan closes at 9.
The operative word is if she gets those states.
Richie, with the numbers I'm giving you, I am confident. There is no if, my brother. She will, carry at least Georgia or North Carolina. And if she carries both, Trump is toast.
as plain as that. So when you crunch all of these numbers, as you have already done and are presenting them on air, where does that leave us? Barrington, who will be the next president of the United States of America?
It will not be Richie B.
No way. It won't be Barrington Green either.
It won't be me either. No, I have no doubt, Richie. When you're examining something, I'm somebody who admires scientists. People who study physics and chemistry and biology. They're brilliant people. And I was taught a long time ago, when you're looking at something and you want to see it at a granular level, you have to go under a microscope. You have to look through it through a microscope. When you're looking at the election, you can't just follow the pundits. You have to look at who is voting, and the clearest indication why Harris is going to win. This election will be decided by women. It will be decided by women, and women are outvoting men at a rate of about 10 to 12% so far. So there is no doubt in my mind that Harris will continue to lead, and she will be the next president of the United States.
Well, you've provided us with some rather convincing facts, and many of the listeners out there will no doubt react. I want to thank you for putting the time that you have into the research, not just for your own benefit now, but to share it with the listeners far and wide. And we will see what we will see, Barrington. We thank you again for your time, and we will definitely stay in touch and see whether or not you come out victor with your prediction at any rate.
All right, Richard, thank you. I like to do it like there was an old TV series called Dragnet, where the lead character was Joe Friday, Sergeant Joe Friday, and his mantra was, just the facts, man, just the facts. That's how I try to live my life.
And that is why I didn't decide to get somebody from CNN or MSNBC or CBS this morning. I called for you because I know you take your work seriously and you take these facts seriously. I thank you again, and I wish you well, all right?
All right, Richie. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Barrington. Barrington Green there, ladies and gentlemen, with his perspective on the race.